Hello, Coven. Welcome back to the Midwest Coven Cast. I'm Marilyn.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Susie.
And it's going to be an interesting podcast. Susie is remote this time, and we're struggling with the technology because we're getting old.
Yay for pandemics. Pandemics.
They're making some old dogs learn some new tricks. Which is fitting considering our topic today is learning and education. So, we do want to get into our stuff here. So, first of all, we have our candle that we need to light.
Yes, you cleaned all the cat hair out of it.
It is, I mean, there's this
thanks,
weird
Marilyn.
whipped creamy looking blob at the top that looks a little suspect. It looks a little bit like
We're lighting the poop on fire.
I think they were going for whipped cream,
I think too, yeah.
But let's all be
It
honest.
should be
ever
white.
since that poop emoji came out, everything.
I
out
mean,
in
it
that
looks
shape,
just like it almost.
Yep, it's poop.
All right, let's light our ritual candle.
Okay, would you like to do the honors, Sam?
I will. I like this.
So I got most of the stuff off.
The rest will burn off.
Yeah, I think it'll be okay.
It'll become one with the candle.
It's not like the fire hazard it was last week. So.
Well, thank you for that. I am actually a slight
It is
bit
lit.
not slight bit. I'm very disappointed that I do not get to be there for the lighting of that, but it's okay.
I know.
Sorry, coronavirus.
Yep, that's okay. It's
To be
just
fair, Susie does not have coronavirus. She is just quarantining because other people have
exposure.
coronavirus.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like I really don't feel any symptoms. I'm clean when I'm at work. I sanitize my hands all
So
the time.
largely this is out of an abundance of caution.
Pretty
Yeah.
much, yes.
Which is
For some reason, I 100% wanted to be upfront with them about it because of how serious it is, and I don't want to be a person that's spreading it because that's very irresponsible. But I did at least want to go ahead and confirm with them what my situation was and how serious I should even take it or not. So
Yeah.
yeah, I felt a lot better after I talked it over with them, and they were like, "Yeah, you're good. Don't worry." I was like, "Okay."
That's good.
But
So despite the strange circumstances, we still have a certain, we have our topic we're going to do, but of course, per tradition, or so far as a tradition.
Predictions.
Predictions! So how did we do with our predictions last week?
Well, mine was absolutely on the moment. So my boobs were spraying everywhere because my baby was screaming next door.
yeah, she's like, mine definitely was coming true right then
So
and there.
yours did come true during recording.
Yes.
Still, for our last
I had to
episode.
grab the towels again.
Which is part 2. So thanks for everybody who listened to both part 1 and part 2 because we talked a really long time.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my prediction, which was like, it's going to take me a really long time to edit this.
I believe you said
so
7
sorry.
hours. I think it was
7 to
7
8?
hours specifically.
I think I predicted about 7 to 8 hours, which I think is pretty darn close to what it took.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Well, because it's like
It was my
I have
fault.
to listen
a lot,
all the way
so,
through the
yeah,
first
sorry.
time, and I'll sort of cut out like little like long pauses or like awkward pauses or whatever, and then I think I was able to cut about a half an hour, and there were like a couple of like we went really off topic, which I'm saving for like just mini
Later
social
episodes when it's
media
more on
stuff or whatever.
topic. No, that's
Yeah,
good because I know
so-
we do that a lot.
So I shaved it down from like 2 hours and almost 40 minutes to like 2 hours and like 10 minutes. And then I went through it again and shaved off another like 10. And then we were like, this is way too long. So now it's going to be 2 episodes, or it was, because by the time you're listening to it, both of them will have come out because this will be episode 4. So that's complicated.
We will try to stay more on topic in the future, but it's a learning process. We probably won't. I'll say we'll try, but what does that mean?
Yeah, I have no faith in us.
These
on
conversations
that.
are very organic. They just,
I think we're gonna have multi-episodes who end up being parts.
All right, but so Susie's prediction.
It still hasn't quite happened yet because we haven't gotten together yet. So my prediction was that Aunt Bev's room
you
will
had to
be
be quarantined
by the time we get together again, which technically we haven't. So.
Oh, I guess. Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, I should ask. Has Aunt Bev painted her room yet, though?
She has not.
No.
Darn it! I was kind of hopeful that while Aunt Barb was in town, that they might go after that.
She mentions it a whole awful lot, but when I offer to help her, she doesn't tell me when she wants me to help her. She just hints at it and expects me to just come over on my own goodwill and do it for her. But, no, she needs to tell me when she wants it done. Right. And then I'll come help her with it.
Right. Yeah. That's fair.
And
it's
I
one
think
of those things.
when Aunt Barb was here, because Aunt Barb likes to paint, and she was going to help her. But instead, they ended up going to her mom's house and packing up boxes and bringing stuff over. So
they also need to pack.
Stuff,
I forgot they ended up doing that. So, I mean, like you said.
But she really needs to get out of that house, especially now that it's going to be winter soon. I wish she would move everything out before it sits for a whole year, because she's not going to be moving during winter.
Yeah. Well, and plus, the sooner she gets rid of the house, the sooner she can stop paying, the gas bill and the water bill.
Yeah.
And, save some money.
Yep.
So, I mean, granted, once she moves in with me, she's going to have a share of the bills here, but,
Yeah.
But then she's at least going to stop paying where she's not
double.
living.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we had 2 positive results, and then Susie's is still kind of TBD.
What is up with my to be continued? Excuse me. What is up with my to be continued? I don't understand that.
I have to say I haven't even thought of what my prediction at the end of this episode is going to be yet.
I haven't thought about mine either, so it might end up being a little bit.
I feel like I wrote it in a note somewhere. I had a good one, and I don't remember what it is either.
So we resolved our predictions from last episode. So let's go ahead and sort of jump into our theme for the day, which is learning and education. Now, we all sort of have different backgrounds and perspectives in terms of this topic. So it's been mentioned on the podcast before already that I am a college instructor. I'm a PhD student, so a forever student. So I'm coming at it from the perspective of someone who's both an educator and someone who has been in school for my almost entire life. So why don't you guys give a little background about...
Yeah, well, I feel like I'm also a forever student, but that's because I don't go continuously. I drop out for 10 years at a time and then go back and then leave for 10 years at a time. And
you know what? Progress is progress.
I'm slowly chipping away at my degree still, at my 2-year degree, which has taken me 20 years to get. It's fine.
Yeah.
I got 2 kids. I joined the Army during all that, but and now I'm also a homeschool mom because this pandemic has graced my life that way.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see kind of what our perspectives to that are, because this brought about a really big shift in the way that your kids are learning.
Well, in both,
and the way I teach too. So
yeah, both my education and his education, because now he's learning at home and I'm having to do all of my educating myself from home, which is very distracting. So we'll get into that later.
Imagine. So Susie, why don't you give sort of your background as a student and sort of the other ways that this topic sort of interests you right now?
I mean, to delve into my past of a student, I was always a good student, AB kind of, but I excelled at English and math, but other than that, I didn't really I don't know, I liked school to a degree, but I didn't once I was out in high school, for instance, I had enough credits to skip a class. Basically, I was going to take a psychology class, And then they came to me and they said, hey, you have enough credits. If you don't want to, you can just, skip a class for the day. And, of course, I opted to skip the class for the day. And then now that I'm older, I'm kind of like,
18-year-old priorities.
Yeah, my 18-year-old self was like, oh, yeah, I got more time, which is actually not a terrible way to think. I mean, time is very valuable.
So you haven't been a student for a very long time.
No, not since high school. I went to college for a couple courses and then dropped out. So, which, then I got experience is basically what I was trying to do.
But you're considering going back, right?
I am to a degree. Like, honestly, I'm kind of also very much a fan of YouTube college. I feel
That's not really that thing, but
no,
like,
I mean,
you know what I'm
saying.
saying. You can learn a lot of things there.
I feel like if I can at least
apply reliability.
Right, exactly. That's what I was just going to say. If I can go back and at least know more what I want to go back for and actually know its purpose, then I'll have more drive to put my efforts into it. Because that was my problem when I dropped out of college, was the fact that I did not apply myself. So I was wasting my time and my money, / my mom's. And so I did not want to do that. I was like, nope, I'll just go ahead and keep working. This seems to be what's working for me.
But then I would also add, though, here that's important in terms of what we've talked about this topic before. You are a new mom, so
you might be a future homeschooler mom.
True, very true.
Yeah, so you're kind of
going to be deciding if you want to delve into public education or not for yourself or your child.
To be quite honest, because of all the conversations that we've had and stuff, like, honestly, I already know in my heart I'm going to homeschool her. Like, there's no doubt about it. Because, I mean,
they're going to be in kindergarten at the same time.
Ooh, yeah. We can, have days
we'll be able to do it together in co-op.
That's what I was just going to say. We can have days where we can, trade children and we can teach them a special lesson for the week for each other. Dude, if you'll do math,
I got science and English covered.
I mean,
there we go. And you know what's funny is actually, I don't know how, if Raven, but Corey's cousin also has a baby that's right around the same age as us, and so does his other cousin, Alicia. I wonder. Well, nah, never mind. I'm going a little too far there, but I'm just saying in general that we have a bunch of children that are right around that same age that we might be able to
start a little baby coven and educate them.
Yeah, be like, y'all want to homeschool, right? They'd be like, girls, you were crazy.
Yes,
but
it's
no,
the best
honestly,
thing that we've done though. For
honestly,
Dylan, it's...
Oh, sorry.
Well, for Dylan, I mean, he has some special needs, I think, in terms of the way he needs to be educated. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, so just being his mom, I knew before we even started public school that it was going to be hard for him and that he was going to struggle with it. So I went to the principal before his first day of kindergarten. I was like, I need to get an IEP. Like, I'm not 100% sure I understand anything about it. It was my first time dealing with that.
Can you explain to the audience what an IEP is?
So it's an individualized educational plan. So if you have any type of special needs, you can get, I think a lower form of it is a 504 or 505 or something. But it basically allows them to do a whole list of different things. Like for Dylan, he gets breaks during the day if he gets overstimulated, because that's one of his big things, is that everything becomes too much and then he just shuts down. And then after he's done shutting down, then he just outbursts all the energy that he was taking in, which a lot of the times it's too much for him. So I knew that it was going to be a lot for him before we even started school. So I asked for an IEP, and the school said no. They said that they had to be observed in a classroom environment before they were granted the IEP. So we didn't get it right away. But then the very first day of kindergarten, I had him in an aftercare program as well as going to kindergarten because I was working at the time. And so he went to school, his first time on a bus, and we dropped him off, but then he took the bus to the aftercare afterwards. And so he went there and he didn't want to go on the bus. He didn't understand. Well, they had one person helping the entire kindergarten class get on which buses they need. None of these students have ever been on a bus before. And so Dylan ran because he was scared. He didn't know who this person was that was putting him on the bus, because it wasn't his teacher that he's been with the whole day. And so he got kicked out of that after school program the first day of school of kindergarten. But then things were not great at school either. He didn't like being in the classroom the whole time. He couldn't stay in his seat. So I got a call within the first week of his kindergarten from the school demanding that I made an IEP meeting. And I just kind of was like, oh, really? Like, you don't say.
Okay, then.
Yeah, like so now it was urgent because they did observe him. Yeah, and I was just like, I told you guys that he would need that. And now you guys are saying that it's an urgent issue because he's causing disruptions, which I knew he was going to cause. Like, but yeah, so we finally got the IEP, and it didn't really work for him. It just, even with the IEP, he was going to the principal's office almost every day. It wasn't always for a referral home, but...
What kind of things were they able to offer you in the IEP?
So it's changed over time. The first one, I believe he was allowed longer periods of time to do his work. And he also had, his own seat in the back of the classroom. So his desk wasn't among the peers. He had a paraprofessional assigned to him. So he had one-on-one with her, which she's great. She stayed with him from kindergarten on to first grade, and he would be in second grade now, but he's being homeschooled. So I believe she still would have been with him if they were doing school still.
That's really great to find people that really are, they really care about who they're helping.
Yeah, she had a lot of patience with him, because there were times when Dylan would be in the middle of a tantrum and he would stab her with a pencil. I think he tried to bite her before, and she just shows up every day for him and, tries to help him out. But at the end of the day, just public school wasn't a good environment, so...
Well, I think this shows two things. A, the power of those, like, one-on-one or small group connections, because this isn't a secret to you, too, but I don't know if I've talked about this really in depth here on the podcast yet, but one of the things that I have a problem with in terms of higher education and even, like, down at the public level now is that class sizes are so freaking big that teachers can't pay that much individual attention to each student, and they need that, especially when they're that young, and particularly when they have needs like your son does.
His whole first year was just problematic because of the overpopulation in the school system. So he was put in an overflow classroom for the district. So there was kids from all over town. They weren't just like for that school. They were from all the elementary schools. The extra kids got spilled into this room. And there was like 5 or 6 of them that were IEP kids with special needs or like heightened sensory issues. And so all of them in one classroom that wasn't made to be a kindergarten classroom. So the kindergarten classrooms are set up with a sink in the room and a washroom in the back. Well, this one wasn't. So the whole class would have to go together to go to the bathroom and to go to and that's a lot for new kids to learn, the process of just how the school day, so anything that kind of makes it different from what the other kindergartners are doing adds to it. And then they had a substitute teacher for the whole first half of the year. And so he had this teacher who was a substitute. It's not her curriculum that she was teaching, so she wasn't really engaged. Yeah, like, she did a great job, but at the same time, you could tell that, like, she was just doing what she was told to do at times, and there was things where she wasn't as engaged as other times, and, but it was a lot for his first year, so I think just going right into it just was not great from the start.
Well, it seems like the sort of rigid structure of public education system now, like, I mean, it lacks, like, freedoms on the part of the teacher to teach like individual students individual things with their natural rhythm of learning. It sort of takes away this ability to sort of like allow students to start to kind of like specialize in certain ways or like to learn things that are sort of in line with their strengths. So that's like another thing that I have about public education in large classrooms, you know. Yeah, I think it's just like that rigid structure is not good for all kids, and maybe not even for a lot of them, honestly. Particularly given, I think, the results would probably be even more positive if it was smaller classrooms for like everybody, you know? Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I mean, I think for Dylan especially, or kids that have like the kinds of needs that he does, like that rigid structure is just bad, which I think comes down to this like rhythm that you talked about, like, which you seem to be thinking is working so much better for her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, especially because... go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
No, you.
Well, the only thing I was going to add to that was the fact that, so like when I was in school, I think it's kind of funny or ironic or whatever, the fact that like, so I had a group of friends and myself that, there was a girl that was homeschooled and she, became a part of our group actually. And, we loved her. Like, she's great. But it was funny how, like, kind of at first, she was a bit odd, I guess, I would say. I mean, it was just one of those things that she wasn't like everyone else. You know what I mean? You could just tell that she was different.
Because she was allowed to be.
Exactly. Which I think at first when she was introduced to public, she was very, like, and I don't know this 100%, but I just remember, like, there were incidences where she was, like, questioning her confidence and stuff, and... as a kid, that's a hard thing to go through, but I know that there was at least people that were encouraging her that she was awesome and whatever, but it was just funny how, like, when you're in that environment that is supportive of you to be yourself, then you are able to be yourself and be so, at one with everything. And then as soon as you get into an environment kind of like what we were brought up in, to be sort of structured and everyone kind of the same cookie cutter or whatever, then you're like, oh my gosh, what's this person that's themselves? Like, why aren't they structured like we all are? Like we were, I don't know. It just kind of was an odd thing that I experienced as a person, because I would have at that point in my life, I didn't recognize how great it was to have been a person like her. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was more looking at it like, why is she so different? Not. Yeah. I shouldn't have said it not in a negative way, I guess, because I came to love this person, and it's a person that I admire, but it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, so...
just something that I thought was an interesting thing that comes along with when you're homeschooled, and you get that specialized education, that you become a person that other people can look at and say, you know what, that's a unique person, that's themselves, and... yeah, no one can take that away from you, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think in public school, there's definitely a lot more peer pressure, but then there's also pressure from the system itself, where there's standardized learning and everybody's supposed to learn the same thing, and heaven forbid if you learn a different way, because then you're just going to fall behind.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think there's certain layers to this that we need to talk about in terms of, like, privilege and things, though, because... there is a pro to the educational system, the public educational system as it is that it does provide some measure of learning to everyone. And there are some people who do not necessarily have access to someone who can stay at home with them or has an education that's high enough to sort of deliver the level of learning that they need. In some ways. And there are certain things that I think people do need to sort of collectively learn, like how to write, how to speak to one another, you know what I mean? Like things like that. And maybe like socializing to a degree. But and the public education system does help make sure that, we have a literate populace, for example, and that we have some minimal level of like civics understanding and like things like that. But
I feel like it got too big. It needs, like, because things used to be one-room schoolhouses where you would have all the grades in one room, and the older ones would kind of help the littler ones, and that's a whole lesson in itself, learning how to teach, help someone. And
so I agree and disagree with that, and here's why. I agree that it got too big in that... the classroom size has got too big, but I
Yes.
think really the culprit is that it is vastly underfunded. If we had more money put towards teachers and, you know, schools and things like that, we could build more schools. We could have more classrooms with fewer students in them. We could pay our teachers, you know, a good salary to where, you know, they have time to put individual lesson plans together for individual students. We can make sure students go to teachers who specialize in certain things.
Yeah.
You know, we could have such an amazing public education school system here. And we could even incorporate some of like the homeschool aspects and things like that for students who would prefer that.
Yeah.
But
well, I think I think we're kind of saying the same thing, but we obviously have different views of it because you're coming from that educator standpoint. But yeah, I think it needs to be smaller classrooms for sure. And then with the smaller classrooms, just that automatically brings more individualized attention and if somebody learns a different
100%.
way, then you're able to teach both ways of learning because you have the time for that. Where if you have 30 kids in your room, you can only teach one thing and you hope it sticks with most of them.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of pigeonholes you in the approach you take to teaching things. Like, you know, the way we teach math in a classroom. You know, there are probably students who could benefit from learning different ways of doing math, right? But it naturally needs to have a sense of conformity, kind of like what you were saying, because you have so many students that, you know, you can't go around and do really individualized, like, this is how you do it. If it works, if your brain works this way, or you could also maybe do it this way, you know? And it's really sad that we have so disinvested in educational structures in our society. And even if it's, you know, public institutions for families who don't have someone who can like stay home with them or whatever, I think that's fine. But again, we need that individualized attention, which we're both talking about. It's just necessary. It's especially necessary when they're young, and it becomes slightly less necessary when you're teaching at my end. But go ahead, Sue. Sorry about that.
No, so I was just gonna say, well, that's one of the things that's really sucky is like the fact that the country, like the people that run the country, don't recognize how important the education system needs to be fixed because that is our future. Like, if we do not properly educate our population, it's gonna basically make it a thing where they're never going to be able to learn to make better decisions that will actually progress us. Like, they're always going to continue to make bad decisions if they don't know any better. And it's like, I don't know. It's just sad, I guess, in the sense
Not to sound like one of those conspiracy people, but I feel like that's the whole point. That they keep the mass education dumber.
You're not
and then
lying.
The people that have the money can do the private education, and then they kind of get to stay on top.
Yep.
And they get to stay on top of
all these people that are giving them all their money.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I was playing Monopoly with Corey one day, and I actually got really mad because I didn't understand. So basically, we were playing, right? And well, this is a different part. I'm not going to go on that tangent that I almost went on. But long story short, I kept landing on the free parking, getting all this money, right? Well, he kept laughing at me, and I'm like, what are you laughing about? He's like, you don't have any monopolies. He's like, I'm going to win this game. I'm the only one with monopolies. And I was like, I don't understand. He's like, you might be landing on that free parking every time and thinking that you have stacks of money, but at the end of the day, you're going to land on that monopoly one time and give me all of that money. And it happened, and I got so mad, because it's true. Like, in life, if you, I don't know, it's just sad.
Well, what's interesting is Monopoly, when it started as a game, it was created by this young lady. Like, it was like, well, I think she might even a teenager or something. I can't remember exactly. But it actually was created initially to sort of demonstrate or be critical of private land ownership and the way that land ownership breeds wealth, kind of.
Right.
And if you're of a subset of people or whatever who doesn't own land, you are at a disadvantage from the get, pretty much. Yeah. And
that's pretty much what I've come to the realization of. It's like, man, I mean, obviously it's not a terrible thing to be like a consumer, but at the same time, like, I have been just a consumer. Like, I need to start switching my game up and being a little bit more on the producer side here because, my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not an anti-capitalist per se, but I definitely find really huge flaws the more pure our economic system gets towards capitalism. I mean, no economic system or system of governance is perfect in its purest forms. I think we need mixes of things. You know, for example, our country has long been a mix of capitalist economy and sort of socialized economy. It's not purely socialist or anything like that, but it does borrow structures from socialist style structures. You know, like, I mean, we have police departments and fire departments.
Well, and I think that's maybe what the fear is in giving more money to, like, education. It's like, you know, but at the same time, it's not anything to not invest in. I think that people are, like, I don't know, fearful that if they give more funding... Well, this brings us back to a point, actually, that I wanted to make, is that, you know, Sam, you mentioned, well, all the rich people send their students to private education facilities and things like that. Well, they have smaller class sizes, more precise paths of learning, things like that. All things that the public education does not provide.
And a lot of private,
Oh, no, go ahead.
A lot of private schools, I believe, also, they offer electives at younger grades. So, like, where public education, you take the same classes as your peers. I think they start younger at where you get to choose kind of your special paths.
I don't know about that 100%, but it wouldn't be surprising in any way, shape, or form to me if that was true. And, but yeah, I mean, it's really funny because there are certain elites who sort of downgrade or try and disinvest in public education. But yes, you're right. They'll send their kids to the best of the best of the best. Mm-hmm. And because they do understand that education is important. Because one of the... I feel like there's a quote or something like that. I'd have to look it up. I might be just making this up myself. I doubt it, though. But I think that one of the worst things for a tyrant is an educated populace, because they understand it can make connections to, you know, what's going on in the world and why it's happening. And if, you know, we plebes understand that, then we can rise up.
Yeah, you know, true. It keeps us docile.
Yeah.
Which is what they want.
But I mean, that's why I think it's so important to see who wants to make investments in education and public education and who's trying to take those investments away.
Well, that's why I'm so excited. Like, that sounds weird, but I'm excited about what's happening right now with education, because a lot of the parents are fed up with the e-learning that the schools have been forced into, but at the same time, now they're able to see what the public classroom kind of looks like, even though it's a completely different outlook on it now, but they could see some of, like, the structure that they have to follow and all that, and that it doesn't work for their kids. And so there's a lot of parents that are homeschooling now, and I'm excited for that. I'm excited for it to be like a revolution and us takes down the government or something.
I do worry a little bit, though, about there are some parents, this is going to sound so mean, but there are some parents, and please note, Sam, you are not one of them, but there are some parents that are like, I'm homeschooling my child, and, like, based on me knowing them personally and seeing the things that they are interested in and do know about, I worry about the education that their child is actually getting. Yes.
That it's not... Well, see, I didn't make my own curriculum. I'm kind of piecing together additional things that I want to add to the curriculum that I invested in. Mm-hmm. But, like, I still invested in a structure of some form.
But see,
so I think that's where it needs to start. Like, there needs to be some sort of structure, because there are some people that unschool, which I think we unschool, like, every 3 weeks, so we'll have 2 weeks on and then 1 week of kind of unschooling, and then we'll have our
Could you explain to everybody what unschooling is so they understand?
Unschooling, well, it kind of looks different depending on whose house you're viewing it from, but in our house, unschooling is kind of just, we don't have a structured we're going to read these books, we're going to do these lessons. It's just kind of, he picks a book that he wants to read, then we'll read that.
It's more of a self-guided.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then he'll have a lot more playtime, which he has a lot of playtime during the school week anyways. It's just more guided play where we kind of read a story and then I give him time to role play the story and like do whatever activity he wants to do and like act out the scenes or the characters, and or if it's a science thing, like act out the concepts or go build the concepts with Legos or so it's a lot more just free play, and he gets to play however he wants. And
I think that's great, because I feel like that actually lets him get the concept, actually learn the concept, and then put the concept to play. You know what I mean? Like, actually...
Yeah. It's like education that meets kids where they're at in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so I kind of try, and it works sometimes, and sometimes he just plays in, you know...
Well, he's a kid.
Imaginatively all the time, which I'm fine with that too, as long as he's engaging with his toys and like, because that's made a difference too. When he was in public school, he wasn't really engaging with his toys. Like he couldn't think outside of the box, and it was almost like he was afraid to, like he would get in trouble if he were to do something that wasn't what the toy was intended for. Yeah. So I had to kind of teach him how to play with a lot of things.
Well, honestly, I feel like as a college instructor who sees like some of the downfalls that the public education system has on students that are coming into the university, I feel like that kind of education allows students to sort of take ownership a little bit more of their education, and also encourages, like I was saying before, that like sort of self-guided education, because when you get to university, it's a little bit different than high school. Like, yes, you go to lectures, you're assigned readings, but a lot of that, you know, you're not necessarily being completely guided through it. Some of it is on you to make sure that you get the work done, that you know, do research for your own papers and things like that. It's not just handed to you. And a lot of that is, you know, the way that people have an issue with that in university, I think, is directly bred from the kind of spoon-fed education they kind of get in public schools right now. Yeah. And that really works to their disadvantage once they get older and they get into these public education systems, you know, for higher learning, where you're expected to take more ownership of your education. Yeah. And that becomes even more pronounced once you get into like a master's program, PhD program, whatever. And even really your later years, like of your bachelor's degree too, where you sort of start to specialize a little bit, you have to take ownership. And sometimes, especially freshmen coming in, they have a really, really hard time with this. Yeah. Like if you don't spoon feed them exactly what they need to do, exactly how they need to do it, like whatever, and when and how and where and to what degree and how high they need to jump, and
that's exactly
it's really hard for them to do it.
I'm kind of one of those college students, though. Like,
that's what got me to drop out. Like, honestly, I just was so bad at just focusing and just being very...
To be fair,
like,
I feel like I was like that at first. I had to unlearn things to take ownership.
That's one of the good things about, like, that I've gotten out of having to do my college work at home now, is that, like, I kind of do it on my time. So I do it on the weeks where I'm kind of not as in deep with Dylan's learning, is when I dive deep into doing my schoolwork. So I do my schoolwork once every 3 weeks, but it kind of works for me. But like, I don't even remember what my point was going to be about.
I hate when that happens.
Dang it.
Let's just rewind the podcast. We'll hit pause. We'll rewind it. We'll let you know.
That's all right. Hopefully she'll come back to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think.
Oh, about being spoon fed. But now, so not being in the class and seeing what everybody else is doing. Now I just kind of do what I feel I need to do and turn the assignment in, and I don't have to like compare it to everybody else and make sure it's better than all of theirs, or at least at par with all of the, you know.
The peer pressure's not there, and the comparison factor is not intimidating your output. Like,
and being in like a creative class, that's helped me a lot, because now I can just like do things that my mind goes to and not be like, be triggered by their idea, and like then my brain is only focused on things relating to that, which I get distracted easily. So
it's gonna be interesting as the teacher to see like how different, because like as you were saying, sometimes people might actually feed off of one another's inspirations. So I wonder like how different each thing that they turn in nowadays is, with everyone being so separated versus how like they were, you know what I mean, when they were in the classrooms together.
Depends, because I mean, like some, like right now I'm teaching asynchronously, but not all people, even in my department, at my college, whatever, are doing that. Some still do have synchronous classes.
What does that mean?
So synchronous means like you meet at a certain time in a certain place.
Okay, yes.
Like even online, like if it's on Zoom or whatever. So it means like there's like real-time interaction. Asynchronous means you do not meet at a certain time in a certain place. Like your lectures are probably going to be like videoed on YouTube, and you're going to have an activity that is sort of self-led online and like due by a certain time or, you know, whatever. But you're not necessarily in class or actively working necessarily with anyone else in your class to do it, right? You're doing it sort of on your own time. I mean, there's probably like some schedule, like a due date or whatever, but you know what I mean? So that's synchronous versus asynchronous. So right now I'm teaching asynchronous, and like one of the things that I do miss about that are the interactions with students, because I mean, even in my own educational experience, I learned a lot from the students too, like in like conversations that you have in the classroom and things like that.
Questions you might not think to ask yourself.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just adding.
Oh, you were just commenting. Sorry.
I was just basically saying that sometimes you might get questions that you wouldn't have thought to ask about a subject from a...
when other people ask things,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, and it's beneficial, too, because there are some students that are afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
And frankly, there are students that sometimes will ask the question, or I've had experience where, like, you have, like, this... like 10 students ask you the same question privately, and then you're like, they probably didn't ask it in class because they felt like dumb asking or something like that. When really, they would have benefited a lot of students by asking. But yeah, so I do miss that interaction and sort of that learning amongst one another, you know, and from one another. Because, you know, and honestly, there are sometimes, even now, that sometimes I learn things from my students, like when they're doing their research papers and things like that. Because, you know, particularly in the second half of the 2 core sequence that I tend to teach, the second half is like a research project that they're doing typically on a subject that relates to their own major and things like that, which are sometimes outside of my knowledge realm. Like I can help them in terms of like structuring their papers and how to go about research and things like that. But, you know, particular nuances having to do with a particular subject area or something, you know, I learn things from them, you know? Yeah.
So kind of speaking
of, still get, but.
And this is going to be like not quite on topic with what you guys are talking about, but it's kind of on topic with the podcast. And then also she said foreign, and earlier you said like spoon-fed, and I have to throw this in here. So one of the things that I admire about one of the other countries is, so in Japan, I guess, I heard that in their educational system, like their public education, instead of just having like lunch, like we have lunch in America where you stand in line and you get like nearly like...
They make it over there. They help.
Yes, exactly. They actually grow the food. They pick the recipes. They cook the food together. They serve the food to each other. They like actually are like, it's a whole thing like that they learn the process of, and they value the process of that instead of like...
Well, I think the way they look at food in general is completely different the way Americans look at food.
Yeah, culturally. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, when I was in high school, what did you see? A whole bunch of kids standing in line waiting for a packaged lunch.
Food.
Yeah, just to be given to them so they can scarf it down real quick and blah, blah, blah. I'm not sure how long they take for their food, but I'm sure they actually probably take more time on their food as well.
But you got to think, when they're cooking, they're doing math. They're using manners. They're sharing and like helping.
Exactly. Like there's such value to that entire process that we just completely skip over here in America. Whereas we could literally like make that a part of the education that they get every day, And then they'd practice it every day and bring it home every day. And, you know, it'd be a good thing. But for some reason, America just doesn't see that as a good investment, I guess. But, yeah, we could restructure that. And I think it would be helpful as a country because honestly, whenever I've talked about that to anybody else, everybody sees the benefit of it. Everybody is very admirable of the fact that they do that. So it's like, why have we not adopted those good things? Like,
I think, well, this is maybe a little conspiratorial of me, but
nope, it is, honestly. I don't know where you're going, but
I wonder if it has kind of to do with our capitalist structure because, like, yes, you can go to the grocery store and whatever, but capitalists make a lot more money when we eat out.
Right. And honestly, well, it's the same thing. If you keep on feeding your brain bad food, then you don't become more educated to feed it better food. And the more educated you are, the better you eat. And you don't feed into all that crap that they all get money for.
Mm-hmm.
You grow your own vegetables at home and you eat organically. And they're like, well, there goes a consumer.
Or secondhand after the tomato has been sliced at a restaurant. It's served to us. Yeah, so, you know, like, growing our own food and making our own food at home, it's it doesn't really go hand in hand with our capitalist service industry.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, they're like, oh no, we want them to be a consumer forever, so let's make sure that they're feeding their brains and their bodies this stuff that they want to continuously feed them. And
we need to start a revolution.
That's what we're doing here. We call it a coven, but
I mean, what else? It's a cult. It's fine.
Yeah, that's what I was joking. I was like, oh no. But no, honestly, it's just true things that people, I'm sure, also resonate with around the world. That, you know, if we all agree on stuff, why don't we, you know, let our voices be heard?
I don't even think they have cooking and home ec in a lot of high schools anymore, or
I never took
junior
cooking.
high schools.
I took sewing, so I had one of the two choices, you know what I mean? I could take this or this, not both, of course. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, as public education gets defunded, what are the first things to go?
Yeah.
Your art programs, your home ecs, your, you know, maybe shop programs, although those probably stay around a little bit more because they do have some practical application. Mm-hmm. But, you know, after the arts programs are pretty much gone, those are, you know, the home ecs, the, like I say, the construction, whatever, that's nice to go.
Automotives, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what we need educating on.
We need more.
We need people that want to do that stuff so that we continuously have that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I don't know how political we want to get on this podcast per se, but
I mean, we have kind of in this episode went there.
Yeah.
But we need to be careful about who we're sending in. Are they people who are proponents of public education and educational reform and investment in public education? Or are they people who want to privatize everything and, like, you know, figure out the best way to make a profit off of education and disinvest everything for, like, the public good? It's important that you're aware of, you know, where your politicians stand on those particular topics. And I won't get, like, so political that I'll endorse a particular party or anything, but there tends to be a difference in the two major parties and where they stand on those
issues.
So that's important, I think, for everyone to understand, you know, regardless of what their position is, to be educated on that and know who and what they're voting for.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, to know the ripple effect of some of that stuff, because, again, like, if you get people that don't care anything about education, then it's, again, going to get worse. So if you get people in office that actually do care really about it and are going to change it for the better, then, it could really go upward for our future.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I think that investing in public education is one of the biggest and best things we could do. It would provide, like, so many good middle class jobs. If we had more teachers and just, like, less students per, like, we could be, like, almost an educational economy in some ways, you know? And we've sort of moved away from that. And that's the other sad part about that is that stifles innovation in our country too, because people aren't
Yes.
educated enough to have it.
I feel like the people that run our country have obviously never played SimCity, because the bigger your populace gets, the more schools you have to build. And you just have to build them. Otherwise, your whole town collapses.
Well, because it's so true, because if you don't have the people educated to know how to keep up with the new, like, technologies, even just to keep up with the old, like, structures that we have, you know? Like, yeah, exactly. It's something that's going to
The world gets more dangerous the less educated the people get.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be more crime, there's going to be more accidents, there's going to be
more poverty.
Literally like SimCity.
Yeah, like they need our elite need to play SimCity. Like go.
I think that they do play, or they might be familiar. I think they're aware of what they're doing.
They're very manipulative of the culture. Or
well, I think with everything being so profit driven, the elite, you know, they want everything for themselves. And
they already have it all.
Power.
They want to keep it. They want to keep what they have and not share it with the Commonwealth.
Yeah, pretty much. And that creates a whole kinds of problems. But yeah, if we invested in public education, we could have more sort of educational freedoms among, you know, educators themselves, and for the students to sort of choose their educational path and like whatever. But we don't have the infrastructure for that now because we've so disinvested. It's sad for society and the kids and everybody, really.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that need to be working, so they need the public education system, but like it just needs to be better, because it's if that's the only option and this is what our standard is, it needs to be better, because it's
I agree.
It's not working.
No.
Like, and I agree that we need like some standardized education, as I said earlier, you know, but you know, we need those freedoms, and you know,
they just need to invest more into
teachers
it.
More say in the paths that education in their classrooms or within their own lives is taking. So,
and I don't think the standard needs to be so rigid either. Like if there's a kid that takes an extra year to catch on to reading than his classmates, I don't think that's something that should hold him back a whole letter grade. He should be able to move on and just get the extra help with reading that a lot of schools used to offer that, but now they don't have the funds because the funding's been pulled, that they don't have the extra reading resources. They don't have, so they have to keep them behind. And it's doing such a disservice for their self-esteem, their learning process, their growth in general, like, because
if they can learn the material of the next year just at a slower pace, then they should be still learning that material at that slower pace.
Sometimes it's not even a slower pace. It's like just the reading that they struggle with. So if someone's able to help them and read it to them and then help them, like, you know,
better their reading skills also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on top of, you know, which I think this is the point you're ultimately getting at, is even on top of like teachers who engage with students, you know, on multiple subjects or maybe one special subject or whatever, there could be a whole network of professionals or paraprofessionals or whatever who could be assisting with, you know, students who have particular needs in particular subjects.
Like an individualized tutor sort of on certain topics or subjects for people.
Or for certain subjects, they could just go to or particular teachers who have specialties working with, you know, particular educational needs. You know, there's like so many ways that we could structure this in ways that we're just not right now.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating, both as a student and as someone who teaches people. It's my opinion that it's just
well, and I think the thing that I've always seen it in teachers time and time again, that teachers really do have big hearts. They really do care about their students, and they connect with their students on a very human level, which is amazing. And I feel like the part that is so disheartening for teachers especially is the fact that they care so much, and the people that run their funding just seem to not care at all.
Yeah.
I mean, not at all. I shouldn't say it like that. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's people that are making very big efforts on their parts, but overall, you know what I'm saying? Like, if it was a more prioritized thing in general, it'd be better. But yeah, it's like disheartening to know that it's not. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's just sad. So yeah, I think that what we're getting at, though, and in essence, our main takeaway for all of us in this podcast is that our educational system, and I think all three of our eyes, could really use some radical changes and certainly some public investment in ways that we haven't seen in a long time. And
yeah, I think, with being a new homeschooling mom, I think seeing the difference between what public school was and now giving the ability to have the time to give one-on-one attention, it's just a world of difference. And the amount of growth that he's had in just the couple, I think it's been 9 weeks now that since we started officially.
Wow, that does not seem possible. It seems like
he's reading chapter books and to get him to read before, it was a meltdown because it was so stressful to him that he, it was so much work that he had to put into it that it would just take all of his energy out. And so now him picking up a book and wanting to read it to us or wanting to read it to brother, it's a whole different world.
Right.
Well, and I feel like in the last several months, he's also calmed down a lot.
Yeah.
And I think I mean, obviously, I'm not with him all day, pretty much like you are.
Yeah, he's a kid, so I'm sure
he has his moments still.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure he does. I mean, he's a kid, right? But I've just seen such a change in sort of his demeanor, and he's calmer more often.
Yeah.
And he seems to take direction better than he used to. Yeah. I mean, just a world of difference.
And he's able to hold his attention longer than he ever was before. And I think a lot of it was just too much stimulation for him. There were too many other kids. There were too many bright things. And I kind of saw it as a trend because I went on every field trip that I could with him to help them so that he was able to go, because otherwise he wouldn't have been able to go on some field trips because he runs from people and he gets distracted and he doesn't pay attention to what he's doing. And so I went on as many as I could, and that helped him to be able to go. But they need all the help they can get.
Didn't you say something about you got or you started to see a pattern with what was not working for him?
Yeah. That at the beginning and towards the end of each day, they would be watching YouTube videos in the classroom. And to me, that just didn't make any sense as a parent, because I'm they tell me screen time's bad, and here they are in the public school system showing all this screen time. And especially now with e-learning during the pandemic, that's all it is screen time. And me knowing my kid, after he's exposed to stuff on a screen, he's automatically heightened and stimulated, and he can't calm himself down because that's such a stimulating thing that he just can't process anything.
Yeah.
So
even in the direction that e-learning and the public education system has gone as a result of the pandemic, you have also have to you still would have had it shifted, because he still would have had issues with focusing and participating online.
We decided to do homeschooling even before they decided that it was because we just knew we couldn't do the e-learning. There was no way I could have had him sit in front of the screen for that long and then expect him to function and focus and be able to learn and grow. It just would not have been conducive to his learning style or his. Yeah, I totally understand that. So I don't know. I guess let's just ask our coven, what are your thoughts on the public education system or private education system or homeschooling, or what have your experiences been? Find us on our social media sites and tell us, Yeah, especially with this pandemic, how things have changed for your family, and if it's changed for the better or if you're struggling.
Yeah.
And honestly, another thing that might be helpful too is, with Sam, I feel like if they were struggling with the public school and the way that is, maybe if they were interested in some homeschooling techniques to try out with their own children.
Yeah.
Well, I can definitely give tips or point people in directions of helping to find them a curriculum that's great for them, but there are different rules in every state. So in Illinois, fortunately, it's very lenient, where I didn't have to do much to pull him out or show much proof of what my curriculum was. I mean, I could have easily, since I invested in a curriculum, but there's other states where you have to actually show everything that you're teaching and like keep attendance and logs, and so I keep
more in detail.
Yeah, I do keep attendance logs, and I keep track of everything that we do every day, but that's not necessary for Illinois. Illinois is very
lenient in that regard.
Very broad, and lenient.
Well, and I mean, I think if they have tips and tricks or activities they do or whatever, they can also share that with us.
Well, you could follow me on my Instagram at the Haphazard Academy. And
Which is a lot of your homeschool stuff.
Yeah, I post all of my homeschooling adventures on there, and so.
Yeah. Sweet. That sounds great.
I've seen some of them, and they're awesome. Like, he looks like he's having so much fun, honestly, and learning so much.
It looks like you do such fun stuff with him.
Well,
which is
so
awesome.
related to fun stuff then, I will do my prediction first.
Okay.
Because we're learning about seeds next week.
Ooh.
And it's also time to carve pumpkins. So I'm going to carve the pumpkin with him. We're going to guess how many seeds. So I predict that there's going to be 649 seeds in our pumpkin.
Oh my God.
That might have to be a really big pumpkin. We don't even have the pumpkin yet, so this is kind of like I'm going to have to get a big pumpkin
I was just
now, because now that 600 might be overreaching, but we'll get a big pumpkin and we'll try.
I feel like I want to piggyback off of your...
Is that just going to be the prediction that we see how close we all
Yes, let's do it.
That.
And we'll do the trust system that Sam will tell us the real number.
Well, I'm going to make him like grid it out into piles.
So Dylan's going to be the moderator. Okay, so I'm going to predict that your giant ass pumpkin will have, what did you say? 649. 649. So I'm going to say 579.
Okay.
Are you going to do that, Susie, too?
Yeah,
with us?
I am, and I don't know why, but 376 is standing out to me.
Okay. So 376, 579.
I don't have as much faith that we can find a pumpkin that big.
Yes.
Or maybe I'm underestimating the amount of seeds that are in a pumpkin.
You all might be overestimating. I don't know.
I think I might have overshot a bit to the get-go.
Well, we shall find out.
So we might have all gone over. If this was like The Price is Right, we
100.
might all be wrong.
Sam's going to go and get like the smallest pumpkin. Like, we're all going to be wrong.
Well, no, because my number is the biggest.
So she wants a big pumpkin.
I have to get the biggest pumpkin I can find.
That'll be fun. You should take a picture of whatever pumpkin you guys...
Oh, I will for sure. Well, I'll post pictures of him counting all the seeds. It'll be a whole thing.
She's like, I'm going to take all the pictures.
All right, everyone. So we have our predictions in. I need to pee.
Oh.
So maybe it's a good time for us to say goodbye to our coven.
Yeah, I'll let them know that their sponsor this week is me on redbubble.com. So if you look me up on Redbubble, it's sdouthet0725, and we can link that. It's linked in my profile on our site, and we'll link it below in this episode.
Yeah, this episode brought to you by Sam Douthet.
On redbubble.com.
On redbubble.com. And what was it again? Sdouthet.
Sdouthet0725.
Let's spell that for them.
SDOUTHAT.
0725, right?
0725.
Perfect. Okay. So go and show Sam some support.
I only have one design so far. I need to upload a whole
Well, you know what?
I'll get at it.
Can they subscribe to you there?
Yes.
They follow you there?
Yes,
so follow her.
See my new
designs.
designs.
So you can see all her new designs as they come out. And so yeah, we'll keep sponsoring our own videos because, you know, that's how we make money. Other than the jobs that we already have. And whatnot.
Feed our side hustles.
Feed us. Okay, so thanks so much for listening, Coven, and we will see you next time.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Midwest Coven Cast. Be sure to subscribe to us so you never miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media at Midwest Coven on Twitter and at Midwest Coven Cast on Facebook and Instagram. You can also find more information by visiting our website at midwestcovencast.com. Until next time, Coven, blessed be.